Welcome again to Different Beat. I'm Tim.
And I'm Elizabeth.
And today we're going to be talking about what is, between the two of us, a beloved and long-standing franchise of the game that we feel like deserves a little bit of homage, reflection, especially with some new titles coming up and some new things looking forward to, and that is Final Fantasy. Everyone in the gaming community knows what Final Fantasy is. Long-standing JRPG's been around since the 1980s. And for a lot of people, it's their first experience into an RPG. I know it was for me.
I believe it was the same for me. I may have played Dragon Quest when it was Dragon Warrior back on the NES, but I had no clue what it was. The first real memory of an RPG I have was Final Fantasy II on the Super Nintendo.
Yeah, see, for me it was Final Fantasy I on the original NES. It was one of those things, my older brother started playing it. He got it from a friend, and I remember watching him and thinking, like, this game is weird. It's not like the games I play, but it's really cool, too. And I first started playing the original Final Fantasy when I was 8 years old is when I first started playing it. It was also the first RPG I ever beat, was the original Final Fantasy. So yeah, I played it to completion, which is amazing because I went back and tried to play the first Final Fantasy again a few years ago. I couldn't get back. It took me forever to get to the end boss because the last stage of it's very much like a maze. You have to go certain directions, so it's like I can't remember how I managed to beat it as an 8-year-old, but I remember doing it. But how I figured that out, I'll never know because that was before, GameFAQs was around. So Final Fantasy, as you can tell here, we've set up a little bit of a shrine to commemorate all of our favorite memories, moments, and some of our favorite characters from the series.
Let it be known, though, this is really my, my stuff. Tim has a much different opinion, which you'll see going forward on the Final Fantasy franchise as a whole. We do share sub-elements, but in particular, if you notice back here, Cloud specifically is Advent Children, which is my favorite character and my favorite design. Tim really doesn't care for it.
Cloud's cool. I mean, he's fine.
Yes, but you don't care for that design for one.
Oh no, the Advent Children
Seven, as a whole, is certainly not one of the upper echelon of Final Fantasies to you.
I know, and that really puts me in the minority, honestly, because for a lot of people, 7 is either the pedigree of Final Fantasy titles or right up there. And I am very much in the minority. Final Fantasy VII, I played it, I liked it. It's not in my top 3, but to each
well, to be
their own.
fair, I would say you're not in a minority, especially when you look at the internet bias for the franchise. It very much leans towards Final Fantasy VI, Final Fantasy IX, which makes me a minority because I think these are actually the 2 worst games in the franchise.
But when I'm talking like Facebook community. I'm a member of several Facebook community Final Fantasy groups, and 7 in these communities is by far the most praised and adored game in the series.
Yeah, that's true, and it is for a lot of people. Well, strangely, despite all the stuff you see back here, 7 isn't in my top 5 either. Well, we'll get to that.
That's really shocking, actually.
I thought a great place to start would be, our first introductions to Final Fantasy, but I thought more importantly for me, I actually when I was introduced to the series, I hated it. I played Final Fantasy II, I thought it was garbage. I played Final Fantasy III, I did not like Final Fantasy III, aka Final Fantasy VI. And I played Final Fantasy VII, and strangely enough, given the content back here, I didn't like it either. So it was like 3 strikes, and I was nearly out. However, Final Fantasy VIII came out, and I know it's cool to hate on 8 and everything.
I don't think it's cool to hate on 8.
He and I were like, we're going to play Final Fantasy VIII. And to me, this was the last straw. Because I was like, if this doesn't win me over, nothing will, because I'm just done with the franchise. And we played it, and I amazingly fell in love with Final Fantasy through 8.
What's crazy though is honestly that was really the game that cemented the series for both of us because we played through it together at the same time. I remember you had it, I came over and I watched you, and we were at the beginning and we got to the fire caverns, we summoned Ifrit, you summoned Ifrit, and we were both just like, I'm all in right now.
I really was. I remember watching Ifrit and Shiva for the first time, because you summoned Shiva during the Ifrit battle, and my mind was literally blown watching the graphics thinking, nothing will ever be better than this. And it's like looking at Final Fantasy VIII now, it kind of hurts the eyes unless you play it on a tiny screen.
Yeah, on the Vita it actually looks pretty good.
It does, but on like HD TV, it cuts you. But I was so sure that nothing would ever look better than Final Fantasy VIII at the time. it was an interesting
Yeah,
experience.
but
But yeah.
I think each generation has a game like that, though, where you play it and you're so blown by the visuals, you're like, it will never get better than this. This is the capstone right here. The graphics will always be measured against this bar. And that really was. I do agree that Final Fantasy VIII was a lot like that.
Yeah, at least when I was younger, I had those moments. But anyways, and I know a few people like this. Their first introduction to Final Fantasy was either the pinnacle of the series for them, or one of the low points.
Yeah.
And for me, it was actually very much a low point. Like I said, I didn't like to this day, I don't like Final Fantasy VI, like I mentioned earlier, which puts me at odds with most people. Because the three highest praised games, if you look on like Metacritic and everything, you'll see Final Fantasy VI, Final Fantasy IX, and Final Fantasy Tactics. All three of which I honestly don't care for. Yeah. So it's a very interesting situation I find myself in when I'm in the community, because I don't love the popular child with Final Fantasy VII. And I don't love, the beloved child in Final Fantasy VI. My favorite game in the franchise is actually Final Fantasy V. And I love Butts, and I love...
one of the few I haven't played
yet. The comic relief. It wasn't as serious, but it was a really great game, and thankfully... I ended up loving the franchise as a whole, and I can actually say I respect most of the games. Like, I would recommend Final Fantasy IX to people. It's just, to me, it's like I can't get into certain games in the franchise.
Gotcha. Well, see, to sort of go back to my experiences, when I first played Final Fantasy I, it's not what lured me into the series. It was actually what lured me into RPGs in general. It was the first RPG I had ever played, the first RPG I had ever beaten, and really gave me a taste for the genre. And, and moving forward, it's like that was my introduction and what I based my future RPG experience off of. Now, granted, Final Fantasy I does not hold a candle. It's so basic, 8-bit, non-narrative that it's like it's not even fair to compare Final Fantasy I to anything that happened later as far as RPGs go. But it was still that first taste I got for leveling up and getting stronger through grinding and really exploring that different party mechanic and how every person can do like a different thing or has a special skill. And and of course that's a common theme in all RPGs. But It was my first introduction to RPGs, and it wasn't a bad experience. I mean, I was 8, I didn't really understand the game. It was just sort of, a series of mechanics that I played. But it will always be, in my memory as the first RPG I played, and I am a fan of the series in general. And I'm sort of like you, to where it's like I haven't liked all installments. In fact, I'll admit I haven't even played all the installments in the series. I've played 1, 2, 7, 8, 9, or no, 1, 2, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, and 14. I've missed 11, and I missed 3, 4, and 5. Those are the only ones I haven't played. And I do plan on going back and playing them because I, enjoy the series, but, I don't spend a lot of time on handhelds, and really nowadays that's the best way to play those older games is on the handheld.
No, I agree completely. In fact, that's how, because Final Fantasy V, the first time it came over was in the Anthology collection, I believe, because Chronicles was 4 and Chrono Trigger, if I remember right. And it was so bad, and it's the one real console experience you could have before now if you lived in North America, and I would never recommend it to anyone. So I ended up playing Final Fantasy V on the Game Boy Advance Micro, and it was a great experience. But yeah, I can understand. Unfortunately, I was really hoping Square would remake it like Final Fantasy IV DS style, but they kind of did for iOS, but not really, and it's really made me sad. I do plan to try the iOS versions eventually. To be honest, I still haven't done so. I really need to get around to trying Square Enix's mobile developments. But
yeah, I haven't done any of that either. So as far as the installments that I have played, I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now my top picks in the series and why I believe so. Now, I'm going to count this back in reverse. So my third favorite Final Fantasy game in the series thus far is probably Final Fantasy XII. Now, Final Fantasy XII is odd because what I like about it is not what I typically like about a Final Fantasy, because in my opinion, a lot of the story elements primarily with the whole conflict war, the political aspects of it, I didn't appreciate very much. I mean, the story isn't what really captured me in 12. What really I enjoyed about 12 is the gambit system, the unique combat, and how massive that world was. I do not think I have gotten that much value and time out of a game in a long time. I mean, I logged probably 120 hours in my Final Fantasy 12 file. I still didn't do everything there was to do in that game. It was massive, but I really, really liked it for that in particular. It was also kind of different because the party it's like in most other Final Fantasies that I have played, there's the group that comes together through a series of events, and 12 has that also. But what I really liked about the 12 characters is how sort of they were very cliquey. Like, they all had the one or two other party members they sort of gelled with, but the other guys were just sort of there for the ride, It's like there wasn't this mass sense of camaraderie, and it was different, and I kind of appreciated it for that.
See, a lot of people hate it for that, and a lot of people want to try and place the blame on Vaughn, saying that he wasn't supposed to be in the game and he was forced in there. Matsuno has gone on record talking about how Vaughn was always in the game. It was just, at one point, he was requested to change the lead character from Vaughn to Gabranth. And how the story changed, we really don't know.
That's
especially
weird,
the way
Gabranth is like, he's a story character, but he's never actually a member of your party.
Not Gabranth, I apologize, Bosch.
Oh, Bosch, okay, that makes more sense.
I am so used to thinking about Gabranth out of the twins. I just naturally default to him.
Yeah, okay.
No, but it was originally Bosch was the lead character, and he had shifted to Vaughn. So we're not sure where the story changes happened, how they went down. We do know that there was some issues, and that Matsuno ended up leaving the company. And what the cause was, some people like to speculate and say it was because of Vaughn. I tend to give Matsuno more credit as a creator. The fact that this was originally his character anyways, I don't think he would throw a temper tantrum and like, you know what, I'm hanging my hands up, I'm done, I don't like this character. But, it's interesting to look back on what could have been. And there's usually a lot of people who will go out of their way to say they hate Vaughn. I
didn't have any problem with Vaughn. In fact, the character I liked the least in Final Fantasy XII was actually Ash.
Yeah, see, I'm the same way.
I didn't really care for her very much.
No, it's like, and 12 occupies the same space for me, and unlike you, I did like the gameplay, but I actually really liked the story, because I liked Vayne.
Yeah, see, Vayne Solidor was a cool bad guy.
Was an amazing villain, as was Sid. I gotta say, outside of Ultimecia from Final Fantasy VIII, Vayne Solidor is easily my favorite Final Fantasy antagonist, and that's for a large part of why I love 12 as much as I do. But I did like Vaughn. I liked the Aladdin type character who was just kind of swept up. He's really not the central focus. He's just along for the ride, and he's who we experience the story through his eyes. Yeah. And I appreciated that, unlike a lot of people who really hated him because of it.
Well, I think the reason a lot of people disliked Vaughn wasn't even necessarily for Vaughn's character. It was the fact that Final Fantasy XII didn't really have a focal character in the story. It's like the story of Final Fantasy XII is not so much driven by any one person, but more of a series of events and the things that party of people accomplish. So I think Vaughn became the whipping boy because he was essentially like the face of Final Fantasy XII. But I think people just took their hate of there's not a main character, so screw this guy, and just sort of decided to make Vaughn the scapegoat for that. Because I really don't see how you could look at Vaughn as a character and be like, he's a weak and crappy character and he's pathetic. It's like, well, justify that. I really don't think your hate's with him. I think it's with the fact that you liked your Formula A and you didn't get Formula A, and so you're like, fuck this game, and then threw the table over. So
it's possible. Plus, I take, perverse satisfaction in how amazing Vaughn turned out throughout the franchise with Final Fantasy Tactics A2, with Revenant Wings. He has amazing character growth. Probably the single best character growth out of any lead in any Final Fantasy, because he goes from point A, and he actually achieves his end goal, becoming a Sky Pirate, and throughout the journey, it's really awesome to watch him grow. Plus, you see him in Dissidia 012, and he's amazing there.
Vaughn is awesome in Dissidia.
It's like, I was really happy with that. And like you, Final Fantasy XII ranks very, very high for me, despite the mixed reception it got from some people. Even though, as time has gone on, it's definitely had a more positive outlook and reception, which I'm happy for.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say this, too. Final Fantasy XII surprised me. I did not expect to like 12 as much as I did. I pretty much played 12 because it was a Final Fantasy game, and I was like, let's do this. And, which, was poor on my part. I should not have gone in like that. But, it really won me over. And so it's like, I think that says a lot for the quality of the game when I went into it expecting to dislike it. It's not like I went in like, this game's going to be cool, and it's cool. It actually won me over with how good it was. So, if you haven't played 12 because you've heard mixed feeling or mixed reviews about it by other people, give it a shot. It's a time sink for sure. There is a ton to do. I mean, you can just blow through the whole game if you want to.
But even then, it's going to take you a long time. There is a lot of content to cover. Yeah. And that game has some difficulty spikes that you're going to have to grind. So if you're rushing, you expect to get stomped in the mud, into the ground multiple times.
Or you'll be a fanatic and go at it like Dark Souls style and get the Zodiac Spirit level 35 in the Necro Hall of Nobodies like I did.
Yes.
I was like, I'm getting this weapon. I was so underleveled, but by God, I did it.
Yes, just make sure you have a strategy guide, because whoever decided the requirements for that are stupid.
Yeah, I will say, there is not many games I've played in my life to where I really felt I needed a strategy guide for. 12 critical. If you go into Final Fantasy 12 without a strategy guide, you're going to either miss a ton of things or you're going to screw something up beyond repair. So yeah, Final Fantasy 12, great game. Anyhow, my second favorite Final Fantasy is Final Fantasy 10. I don't know, what do you think about Final Fantasy 10?
10 was an amazing experience. The fans that surrounded at times kind of pushed me away. It's similar to Final Fantasy 7 fans. I
think I would argue that about any game. That any game has fans that make the game unappealing, or they really sort of rub you the wrong way.
That's true. I agree. My second favorite, and I won't dwell on this, but I actually really do consider Final Fantasy V to probably it's probably the best game in the franchise. If I were try to separate my personal feelings about each one. What I think makes a good game, and nostalgia is the main reason for my number one.
Oh, yeah,
but Final Fantasy V.
I think by now they already know what our number one is, but continue.
Final Fantasy V's gameplay is stellar. Its characters are great for what it is. Overall, it's just an amazing experience. Our number one is the same, so you can go ahead and say what it is, despite it not being the most popular choice.
No, actually, it's one of the least popular installments in the series, and that's Final Fantasy VIII. I love Final Fantasy VIII, but the thing is, and I think we both agree on this, is to all of those people out there who are ever going to watch this video and just fall out of their chair in nerd rage because they hate 8, I get it. We get it, okay? We get why you hate 8. I do. I get it. Beth gets it. Okay, I think we've established that. You can feel justified. The reasons I love Final Fantasy VIII, plain and simple, okay? 1, I love the world it's set in. 2, I love the main character, Squall. I know people say he's like this crazy emo kid. But what makes 8 great is not necessarily Squall from the beginning. What I feel makes 8 great is watching Squall's progression as he grows, as he opens up, and how the party is unified by this bond of friendship and this past that they all have together, even though most of them don't remember that past, at least not until later in the game. And so it's this, that sense of awakening and maturity when he realizes that he's not alone, that these people are there to support him and to save the world to him. And especially when he wants to, protect Renault and he falls in love with Renault, and that whole story I think is fantastic. I just really love the chemistry between Squall and Renault. I love the story. I love that she's the sorceress and he's her sorceress knight, It's just I love that. Not to mention GS, Guardian Forces, are easily
still the best name. The
best name for summons in any Final Fantasy. Keep your Eidolons and your Espers. You'll get me at full mast when you tell me you're bringing back a Final Fantasy where they summon Guardian Forces. I will be all over that.
No, I agree. My love of Final Fantasy VIII, while similar, actually comes from a different area, and that is, I actually generally like the things that most people hate about people will hate the junctioning system. I personally feel the junctioning system is the most most variable system Final Fantasy has ever had. Yes, you can use magic, but there's a downside to it. You can also, gem yourself for speed and power, but you're not going to have any real magic stats.
Yeah, it really gives you the ability to just build your character in a way that in a lot of other games you don't get that ability.
Yeah, it's you can break it, yes, but outside of very, very few examples, you can break almost any game that's ever been created. Yeah. So that's not an issue for me.
Yeah,
Draw,
absolutely, I agree.
Which is another big drawback, unironically. I don't actually think it's that bad because you can skip drawing throughout the entire game if you carve.
Yeah.
And it's it's a very simple process that's very easy to understand. If you just go through your menus and read the text there, it's very simple to get. So the majority of issues people have with 8 I agree they can be issues. The writing in Final Fantasy VIII.
Yes. Even its biggest, weakest link.
Yeah, the writing is awful, and I get that. I still do love the way they portrayed Squall. I don't agree with him being emo. I legitimately believe Squall is a person that suffers from abandonment issues.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's emo to go have abandonment issues. I think that it's a real life thing, and to see an RPG where they were really trying to deal with not just my family being slaughtered generically like Cloud had, but true abandonment issues and what that does to a person's psyche was really amazing. A lot of people was like, well, he's just a dick till the end of the game. It's like, I think that there's a lot of character growth that people overlook. Like the fact that he does yell at Renault and pushes her away. These are actually moments of character growth because at the beginning of the game, he's unwilling to even do that. He tells Quistis he doesn't want her problems. He doesn't want to deal with anyone. Yeah, he lashes out. I mean, yes, you can say that's a negative, but him lashing out is character growth. It's him trying to stay in his shell and being unable to do so. And I thought these were really great elements that they incorporated into Final Fantasy VIII that so many people will just kind of brush off and like, well, it's emo. And it's like, I think that really does it a disservice for what it is.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree with that because it's like, I get why people are saying that it's emo, but at the same time, I really think that's just sort of, that's a really shallow and detached way of looking at it. It's like, if you really actually really look at that, you can see a lot more character growth and development, like you're saying with Squall. It's like, you just want to hate him at a glance. You don't be like, oh, well, he's a jerk, and he always wants to be alone and, brushes people off, so he's just this total emo kid. But I think I agree with you. If you actually invest yourself into his character and sort of follow him through the game, you can find a lot in Squall, I think, that most people can relate to, personally.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, anybody who's gone through those dark teenage years we all went through, So, I love Final Fantasy VIII. It's my favorite. I get why people don't necessarily like it very much. I love the summons and triple triad. I mean,
which is thankfully coming back to Final Fantasy XIV.
Really?
So yeah, they are implementing it with the expansion, or they may have already done it with the patch. I'm not yet, registered with 14 quite yet. I'm waiting for the Dark Knight to be out for a while and get its balance adjusted. I played the level 50 on Final Fantasy XIV, and it was the most disappointing experience I've ever had. Yeah, so I want to make sure the Dark Knight it's primed for when I give them more money. So
yes, yeah, I played 14 too on a paladin up to level 50, and then I dropped it. But yeah, so now things I love about the series in general, since we want to sort of talk about the series, not necessarily things we like. The things that I think really makes the Final Fantasy series stand out, and I mean, I know that all RPGs, have that strong writing is what drives a good RPG always. Mm-hmm. But I really think that the Final Fantasy series in particular has some great writing. And I love how each installment shares common elements. Things that carry over between games. I mean, they might seem sort of tropey now that it's gone on for so long, but I really think it's almost paying that homage to that nostalgia, like the Biggs and Wedge and the Cid, and the fact that there's summons and things like that, and lots of the summons are the same and they return each time, but the world is different, the characters are different, the story is different, and there's just new people to invest yourself in and new systems to learn, and I really, really love that. And it's like, I think that with this series, when I think of Final Fantasy, I expect a quality experience each time. And I mean, I haven't always gotten that same level of quality I've expected, but I've yet to play a Final Fantasy game that I full on hated though either. I mean, there's some that I've been like, this is not my cup of tea, but I've yet to play one where I was like, this is garbage and I just can't finish this. Whereas there's been lots of other RPGs that I have dropped like that. Mm-hmm. So, and I'm not even going to say it's because of the title. It's because I genuinely have not come across one yet that's let me down that much. And I'm really looking forward to Final Fantasy 15. Our last video that we uploaded was actually our impressions of Final Fantasy 15, and we're both very excited about it.
We are.
And so I am a big fan of Final Fantasy's past. I'm really looking forward to Final Fantasy's future, really seeing where it goes.
Yeah, I think what I'll do with what little time I have left is I'll go the opposite of you on some of the things that I really dislike about the Final Fantasy franchise, because I really think we should cover a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that is the varying quality that we've experienced lately. We've had And it's not even the games. I'm thinking specifically North American voice direction. And this is no attack on any individual voice actor. At times, like, I know the Type Zero cast, I've experienced them in many things. And a lot of them are extremely skilled voice actors, but they sound terrible. And we've come off Final Fantasy XII, which had amazing voice direction.
It did.
And then we've experienced 13, 13.2, Type Zero, and there's been a very sharp decline, so I really hope to see them kind of pull that back to Final Fantasy XII levels, give us a great localization, give us, great voice actors, give them the direction they need to really give us their best and get a good quality dub going for 15, because I'm excited for the characters of Noctis and his friends, and I want to make sure that comes across well, and I've already seen a lot of cry from the community that they feel it's terrible. I didn't personally feel that way about the demo, but I am concerned about the final product and whether they'll be able to hold out for a fully imagined and wonderful dub. So I really do hope that that gets picked up. Another thing is, I'm glad Square Enix is done with Lightning because, like I said, my segment here is going to be the thing that, has been not so great with Final Fantasy lately. And I like 13. If you actually look back here, there's some 13 products back here. But I was done at 13 too. I was done at Duodecim. I was way past done with Lightning Returns. And so I hope we see them, and we've heard rumors that there could be a 15 too. I hope that proves wrong. And even if they're going to recycle assets, I hope they do it in such a manner that was like Type Zero, where it reused enemies from Final Fantasy X. I'm fine with that. Go ahead and reuse enemies or location, like assets from Final Fantasy 15, but give us new characters and give us a new world. Don't recycle the characters from 15 like they did 13.
Yeah, absolutely.
And give us new characters to get invested in. When we see Type 1 at the end of Type 0, there's a hint for Type 1. Let it be a new cast. Do not recycle Type 0's cast. Give us something new. Give us the new worlds. Because that, more than anything from 13, is what I took away from it. Because I didn't mind 13. I love Fang. I love Saz. He was a great father. Fang was an amazing character. But by the end, I didn't want to see Saz. I didn't want to see Fang. I sure as hell didn't want to see Lightning. And it's because it's like...
Don't make me start on Hope.
Yeah. It's like,
oh my gosh, that
when
kid.
I buy Final Fantasy, I want to experience those characters. I want to experience those worlds. But even if I love them, like, I don't need a Final Fantasy 8 2. I don't need a Final Fantasy
leave well enough
7 4. It's
yeah.
like, just create it. If you want to reuse assets, but please do not recycle the characters and keep bringing them back. Move forward with new casts so we can get a new experience and get pulled into them. And even if we hate them, we can move on. I didn't like Final Fantasy 9, but I respect Final Fantasy 9. I love it for existing. Let me, even if I hate 15, let me respect 15 and love it for existing and move on from it.
Yeah, honestly, what I would like to see happen is if in the future they do want to expand on a Final Fantasy story, I would say give it the Advent Children treatment and just make a movie out of it. Let people watch it if they want to watch it, But I really think like Last Generation was dominated by Final Fantasy 13 with 3 games. And it was just by the end, it was just like, please, I'm done with Lightning, and I'm done with Sarah, and I'm done with all these people. Let's just move on to new material. And it's like, I really think if they really wanted to expand that, because I mean, I played 13 too, and it was pretty good. I really liked Noel. I thought he was a good character. I know he'll probably never show up in anything again, which is sad because Noel's one of the strongest characters I thought in the whole 13 series, and he only had his moment in the sun in the second one. But in the future, I really hope that they just do like they do with 7. They had one game, and I think the reason that they made the movie of 7, the Advent Children movie, is because so long had passed since 7. They couldn't just make a game and be like, this is the second part. So that's what Advent Children is for. But let's just do more of that. It's like if you want to go down that rabbit hole and really go beyond fleshing out your world to expanding it, let's just make movies out of it. I think use that energy to develop the next Final Fantasy and just make the movie. That's what I
And
think.
I know that's going to be an unpopular opinion with some people. They really want Final Fantasy 6 2. They really want Final Fantasy 7
late.
2.
It's like they should have done it forever ago if that's what they want to do.
Even the Final Fantasies I love, even if Final Fantasy 15 comes out, and it's my new favorite Final Fantasy. I love Noctis. It's like I don't want a sequel with them. It's like, I want it to feel self-contained, and I want to have a new game even if I hate it, because I want something that is fresh. And for 12 games, Final Fantasy gave me that. Love or hate, like or dislike, it was always fresh, and I never regretted my time with a Final Fantasy. And sadly, that came to an end in this last generation. So I really hope that moving the PS4 and beyond, we see more individual experiences and less recycles.
Absolutely. So thank you for watching our video about Final Fantasy as a series. If you haven't played them, by all means, get out there and do so. If you like the video, please feel free to like it. And if you want to hear more of our videos, opinions, and see what we have to say about things, go ahead and subscribe. We upload videos every Sunday. Stay tuned for our next episode where we're going to talk about Bloodborne on PlayStation 4. I'm Tim.
And I'm Elizabeth.
And this was Different Beat. Thanks for tuning in.